eschatology here. We're looking now at the eschatology in the book of Isaiah. Last classes were finished up Ezekiel. Not all the prophecy in Ezekiel, but a lot of it. And so kind of skimming through Isaiah, and we're going to look at other books of the Bible as well till the end of the semester. But Isaiah talks about the effects of the tribulation in chapter 32, verse 12 through 14. And what will happen at the end of the tribulation period is that people will mourn the devastation of the land, because remember, that's like a focal point in the Gog and Magog war. It's also the scene of an earthquake that takes place in the middle of the tribulation period where 7,000 people were killed. And so that's already in ruins because of that. And then the constant fighting that's going on for the last 3.5 years of the tribulation period is going to take a toll upon the land. And of course, the land is very, very important. It's important to prophecy. It's important to the Jewish people. I mean, even today, it amazes me. But it really, it's a fulfillment of the Bible in many ways, is the way that the Jewish people are, because they're the only people I know of who have such a strong desire as a whole wanting to go back to their homeland. There's no other people like that. You know, y'all know I do my genealogy and look up things, and majority of my DNA is from Wales and Scotland. It's like 54% of my DNA from there. Would I like to visit those places? Yeah. But would I want to move there? I don't think so. I mean, why there's no need to. But for the Jewish people, they do. And Israel is a place, if you can go. But it's not the land that flows with milk and honey anymore. It's a land that is, the population is growing quite a bit. A lot of Israel is desert. When you go, if you're a Jew and you go back, you have to join the military and serve either 2 or 3 years, I can't remember, male and female. It doesn't make any difference. And their male and female all go into combat as well. So, it's amazing that anybody would want to do that. So why do they? Well, because God put it in their heart. And so it does show the proof of the scriptures here. Well, the people love the land. And so at the end of the tribulation period, those who survive, they're going to mourn over the land. Maybe even the Old Testament saints, when they come back, will, look at it in the sense of the destruction there. But it says, they shall lament for the teats, for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine. Upon the land of my people shall come up thorns and briars, yea, upon all the houses of joy in the joyous city. Because the palaces shall be forsaken, the multitude of cities shall be left, the forts and towers shall be for dens forever, the joy of wild asses, a pasture of flocks. So basically just destitute at this point because of the wars, the earthquake and war and other events that take place during the tribulation period. However, at the end of the tribulation period, God does proclaim an outpouring of His Spirit upon the land. In chapter 32:15 it says, until the Spirit be poured upon us from on high, and the wilderness be a fruitful field, and the fruitful field be counted for a forest, then judgment shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness remains in the fruitful field. And the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. And my people shall dwell in a peaceful habitation, and in sure dwellings, and quiet resting places. When it shall hail coming down on the forest, and the city shall be low in place, blessed are ye that sow beside all waters, that they send forth thither the feet of the ox and the ass. So the land will go back to being prosperous. In fact, the whole world is going to change quite a bit at the millennial kingdom. Isaiah, other places prophesied that the mountains were lower. And so we don't know exactly what all that means, but I think it's going to make it more similar to what the land was before the flood. Because the flood caused a lot of mountains, a lot of valleys, a lot of rivers, different places, and so forth and so on.
But all of this is in the, okay,
Yeah, all this will be at the beginning of the millennial kingdom.
okay.
And so what we'll look at is these changes that Isaiah prophesies. Again, we don't know all will be going on in the millennial kingdom, but it will be quite an event. I mean, it'd be pretty awesome to see. With Jesus being there, we'll be in glorified bodies, and we won't sin anymore, so that in and of itself is awesome. That we will never have to worry about that. We will be serving Him for that 1,000 years in whatever capacity that He wants for us. And nobody knows what the role will be. We do know that the basis of our role is based upon the judgment seat of Christ, what rewards that we will or will not receive.
That was my Sunday, well, I taught a little bit of that Sunday. We call them the empty tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing because you know how most people believe that the cross was everything.
Yeah.
But the cross was nothing without the resurrection.
Exactly, because there was 3 on the cross that day.
That's right.
Yeah, so for 2 of them, that was, you know, but you're absolutely right, it's the tomb. But even, you know, that our churches really put more emphasis on Christmas than we do Easter.
I know.
You know,
That's
and nothing wrong with putting emphasis on Christmas, we should do that.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
you know, what is more important for our
That's
salvation
right.
is the resurrection.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It says, Millennial King producing a fruitful field and forest from the wilderness. I have heard this all my life. I guess I should have looked it up. But my understanding is that fruit trees don't grow in forests. They grow in orchards, but not in forests. So if you go out in the forest, you're not going to find an apple tree in the middle of the forest. They have to be around each other, what have you. And but here it talks about a fruitful field and forest from the wilderness. So maybe in the millennial kingdom things expand out. I need to look that up. I've always heard that, but I've never really looked that up. But I know I've never seen a fruit tree in the forest.
I haven't, now that you mention it.
Yeah. Says, until the Spirit be poured upon us from on high, the wilderness be a fruitful field. Oh, actually, well, it's the same thing. It will be accounted for a forest. Justice and righteousness will produce peace. Remember now, we will not sin in the millennial kingdom, but those that are born in the millennial kingdom, and even those who enter into the millennial kingdom. You know, just because you're saved at the beginning of the millennial kingdom doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect throughout the time. I mean, just like for us, we got saved and then we still sin. And so those who saved in the tribulation period will still sin, but I'm sure not to the extent that it had once been. However, there will be sin and consequence of those actions. And so justice and righteousness, true righteousness, will reign at that time. You know, nowadays, some people are convicted for crimes they didn't commit, and you know, it just, some are let go, and they should be in prison it's because man. I mean, we're not perfect beings, and you know, even if courts want to get it right every single time, and they really strive to get it right every single time, they could be fooled. And so we don't, you know, but in the millennial kingdom, that's not going to be worried about. People will know exactly what someone did. Then judgment shall dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness remain in the fruit field. And the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness, and assurance forever. And then peace and security, even in rough weather. It's kind of amazed me with studying this passage here. And I don't know if amazed, but I'd never really thought about it before. You know, how you read a passage 100 times and then one day you read it again, you think, when God put that verse there? Because it wasn't there the last 100 times. You know? And obviously it was, but you know, we somehow miss it. But it says, my people shall dwell in a peaceful habitation and ensure dwellings in quiet resting places. When it shall hail, coming down on the forest, and the city shall be low in a low place, blessed are ye that sow beside all waters, that send forth thither the feet of the ox and the ass. So even in troubled times, as far as the weather, because there still will be weather in the millennial kingdom. And so a great storm, God says, I'll still give you peace during this time.
So there gonna be seasons in the millennium kingdom?
Yeah.
Winter, summer?
Yeah.
Just saying, you took the word out of my mouth. That's what I was,
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for you
Well,
to finish.
I'm saying it's just gonna be like in Hawaii, you know?
Right. Well, you go back to Genesis 8:22. As the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, summer and winter, day and night, cold and heat will not cease.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it still have the seasons. Jerusalem will be a quiet place, which is made secure by the Lord. Jerusalem historically has been in the tribe of Benjamin. However, in the millennial kingdom, Jerusalem will be considered the holy city and have its own property. Probably still where the original temple was at. But Benjamin will be beside it, I guess, wherever God wants to place it. But they'll be able to see the king in his beauty. I mean, imagine being able to, for us, I assume that we'll still have to travel maybe by car or plane or what have you. I mean, we're not angels with wings in the millennial kingdom. It's a false teaching that the Mormons teach, that people become angels, but the Bible definitely does not. Like section 132 of the Mormon book, Doctrines and Covenants, mentions that people become angels, and it also mentions that if you deny or don't utilize polygamy, then you're damned.
Ooh.
Which, the irony of that is that, I guess late 1890s, Mormonism quit polygamy so that they could become a state. And so according to their own teachings, they're all going to hell. Now I'm sure they don't read it that way. I'm sure they say, well, that's not what it means, but it's what it says.
Dr. K, where will David,
He'll be there in Jerusalem.
but I mean, what will be his,
He may rule over Israel, with Jesus there ruling over the world.
okay.
So, kind of like, we talk about King Cyrus and King Darius or Darius, the two kings of the Medes and Persians. Cyrus was king of Persia, and Darius was a king of the Medes, and they both ruled at the exact same time. But Cyrus was the main leader, and Darius was maybe more like a governor, if we put him in our terminology, some of that extent. But Jerusalem will be peaceful, secure. God's people will be healed and forgiven. In fact, all be no blindness, no physical problems like we have today. It says, thine eyes shall see the king in his beauty. They shall behold the land that is very far off. Thine heart shall meditate terror. Where's the scribe? Where's the receiver? Where's he that counted the towers? Thou shalt not see a fierce people, a people of a deeper speech that thou canst perceive, of a stammering tongue that thou canst not understand. So I believe by what this is talking about that there'll be one language in the millennial kingdom.
Okay.
So we'll all speak the same. Because it says, you'll see a different people, fierce people, a deeper speech that you can perceive, that you can't, that thou canst not understand. So in other words, we'll be able to understand everything at that time, which makes sense.
Yeah.
The way it was before the Tower of Babel,
Right.
before God judged man. Look upon Zion, the city of our solemnities. Thine eyes shall see Jerusalem, a quiet habitation, a tabernacle that shall not be taken down, not one of the stakes thereof shall ever be removed. So apparently not only the millennial temple will be there, but the tabernacle itself will be set back up again. But there the glorious Lord will be unto us a place of broad rivers and streams, wherein shall no galley with oars, neither shall gallant ships pass thereby. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king, he will save us. Then we look at the sovereignty of God. Now, this is probably one of the most misunderstood words among religions today. And I say religions because that doesn't mean necessarily people who believe the truth. You've heard me talk about Calvinism in the past, and Calvinism believes that some people are going to be saved and some people are going to be lost, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you're born to be lost, you're going to hell, and that's it. You can't get saved. And if you're destined to be saved, you really can't get saved because you already are. And of course, that's not what the Bible teaches. And they base that upon the sovereignty of God. But the sovereignty of God does not mean that God controls everything that's going to happen. I mean, really, if you look up the word sovereign, you can put it for the President of the United States. You can put it for the kings or whatever of any country, because they are the sovereign of that country.
Like the ruler?
They're the ruler.
Okay.
Right? But do people do everything the president tells them to do? Of course not. And they don't do everything the king, they don't do, no. And today God is sovereign, and I believe God is sovereign. He is the ruler. However, obviously you look around the world, you find people not doing what he tells them to do. And so being a sovereign does not mean you force your will upon them. But that's the way people want to define it today. And it's not. We'll look at in Esther here with Haman and Mordecai, and how that Mordecai discovered the plot to kill the king, and the king wrote it down, had it wrote down in his chronicles, but didn't reward him, and later on, when he read it, he realized he didn't reward him. And people say that's the sovereignty of God. And really that's the providence of God, okay? God providing. But God did not force Haman to do wrong. Haman did wrong by his own accord. And so the sovereignty of God, again, is that God is the ruler. He is the one, he is Jesus, King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. I had a professor when I was in college, and he had this old saying that he said, and at first I thought it was pretty good. He said, if the Lord is not Lord of all, then he's not Lord at all. And I thought, well, that makes sense. Then I got to think about it one day. No, it doesn't make sense. So if I follow God, I make him Lord. If I don't follow him, I take away his lordship? No. If I don't follow him, he's still Lord. Right? We are not changing that. He is the Lord of Lords. He is King of Kings. Whether people follow him or whether people reject him, it makes no difference. He is unchangeable. He is who that he is.
We change, but he
We change, yeah. And we need to change to the right way. But we see God's control and God's rulership here with the judgment of the nations. And I've talked a lot about this in different classes, Old Testament books of the Bible, where God is constantly judging other nations. And it goes back to the basis of that judgment, of course, goes back to the Abrahamic covenant. I will bless them and bless thee, and curse them and curse thee. And so God constantly judges them at the end of the millennial kingdom. And we'll look here, maybe, remember next Monday there's no classes, Easter Monday.
Next week, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But the week after that we may get into Matthew.
That'd be the 10th, right, Dr. Carey?
Today is the 3rd. Yeah,
Yeah, because Easter's on the 9th.
Yeah, we're out.
Okay, I got you.
And so we see judgment on the nations as a whole in chapter 34. Particularly Edom is mentioned, the great slaughter in the land, the day of the Lord's vengeance. Well, of course, we're talking about the tribulation period here. And its judgment is inevitable. I mean, while the nation Edom doesn't exist by name. It's still the area there. Jordan, kind of modern day Jordan is where Edom's at. Of course, during the tribulation period, that land will suffer greatly. We don't always see God's judgment take place, and oftentimes as humans we want to, or at least we think we want to. Somebody does something against us, we, road rage or whatever, and they run you off the road, then you go down the road a half mile, you see them with a flat tire or pulled over by the police or whatever, and that's what we want to see. But the fact is, God's judgment isn't necessary for us to see. Not meaning that sometimes He don't let us see it, because He does. But it's not something that we should even rejoice in. God judging someone on our behalf is not something that should make us happy. All judgment for sin is sad. It's wrong. For us to take any joy in that. People today have the mentality that don't say I don't get mad, I get even, and they think that we as Christians have a right to follow that plan, and we don't. Corinthians. I just got a text, my Apple checking account has been blocked. I don't have an Apple checking account. So I guess it's okay. Trying to remember the verse here. First Corinthians 6:7 says, "Now therefore there is utterly a fault among you, because you go to law one with another. Why do you not rather take wrong? Why do you not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded?" So Paul's saying, okay, you're going to lose this, but who cares? Just accept it. What's the big deal? Okay, they got the best of you.
Okay, let it go.
Yeah, okay, yeah, let go, move on.
That's right.
And Paul would know, wouldn't he? He would know.
There's another person I'm trying to think of. I can't remember where it is right now. But anyway, that covers it.
Yeah.
The
First
fact is
Corinthians 6:7.
yeah,
Okay.
that, it doesn't really matter in the long run. I've been, by the world standards, cheated out of stuff. And I probably could have fought to get it back, but I thought, what's it really matter? It's not a big deal. I'm relying on God to take care of me in the future anyway, not this, what I may have lost right now. Come near, you nations, to hear, and hearken, you people. Let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and His fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them, He hath delivered them to the slaughter. So God will take care of our enemies. He'll take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. The blessings and the chastening, what have you. Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail, none shall want or make, for my mouth that hath commanded, and His Spirit that hath gathered them. He has cast a lot for them, and His hand hath divided it unto them by line. They shall possess it forever, from generation to generation shall they dwell in. So Again, God's in charge of what's coming up. He's in charge of the nations. We shouldn't really worry about it. And it's also manifested in his salvation. Or the word salvation here means for deliverance. His deliverance of Israel, of Zion. You see the land, the transformation of the land. Remember that takes place at the beginning of the millennial kingdom, when there's going to be quite a few geographical, I guess, events is what maybe want to put it, where the mountains do lower. Things are changing. With the mountains lowering, you're talking about, a while ago we were talking about weather, that will affect weather patterns. You know, if the snow is coming up from the south, like from Georgia, whatever, we rarely get it because it hits the mountains and blocks it. If it's coming from the north, we tend to get it. In the millennial kingdom, with the mountains differing what they are now, and even in the tribulation period when it says every mountain and island shall be moved out of its place, the world's going to be completely different looking in the millennial kingdom. So a transformation of the land, the weak and fearful are reassured, the blind, deaf, and lame healed, the dry land will fill with pools and springs. Israel will return to being the land that flows with milk and honey, a land that prospers. When I was there in '95, so it's quite a few years back, they were trying to irrigate along the Jordan River. I don't know if they accomplished that or not, but by far most of the land of Israel is desert. Then the highway of holiness, there'll be a road into Israel that people, will, when they're traveling to see the Lord, all will travel. So it's a great interstate or whatever it's going to be called, that we can travel when we go to Zion.
So we would have to catch some type of transportation to get?
I'm assuming that we did.
Okay. We won't be able to just,
Right.
because we have glorified bodies, I would assume
Well,
we'll be able to move into objects like Jesus did. He came through the wall, remember?
yeah, but he's also God, and we're glorified, we're not God.
Okay.
So, I'm assuming that we'll be a physical being.
Oh, I think we'll be
Yeah.
physical, yeah,
Well, I mean,
and glorified.
yeah, a glorified being in that we will have a glorified body,
Yeah.
like Jesus has a glorified body, but we won't be Jesus, okay?
Right.
And so, he's God, we're not. We are still controlled by time and space.
Okay.
You
So
know,
we have to catch the plane,
Yeah,
catch the
catch
train,
plane.
drive.
Yeah. You know, pretty much all my life I've wanted a 1958 Chevrolet Impala.
So you make it that.
And in this earthly lifetime, I'll never get that, unless something really weird happens in the next few days. But maybe in the millennial kingdom, God will let me have one. But at that point, those things will not matter to us. Yeah, it's like you tell a kid if they their pet dies, their dog dies, and they ask you, will it go to heaven? What do you tell them?
Well,
I tell them this: when you get to heaven, if you want your dog to be there, it'll be there.
really?
Yeah.
Because I want my dog there.
Yeah, but when you get to heaven, you may not want to be there. So that's the thing. So the key is what your wants will be in heaven as opposed to what they are now.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are horses in heaven
Oh, yeah.
because we're riding back with them. You know, when Jesus comes back the second coming. But do our pets go? No. I mean, we've had a couple pets I know ain't going to heaven. And they even no way they're going. The one I got now, yes. No. I mean, animals don't have souls, so therefore, no. But you know, for a kid, That's an honest statement. If you really want it to be there, God will let you have it. So in one game, you ask God for your puppy back. Okay, God could do that. But again, our wants are going to change quite a bit. All right, let's take a little break. We will go into this for the second class as well.
Okay, so this will change from 10 to 11.
Right, just be, 10 for 11. So we'll have to try to keep up those as much as we can.
Okay, but everything is gonna be in eschatology today.
Just the first two
The
classes.
first two,
Yeah.
okay.
We will still
Okay.
have 1st, 2nd Timothy, and Ezra.
Oh, okay. I got you. This will be on, you'll have it on video tomorrow or Wednesday, probably. Well,
Yeah, I always try to put them on Monday, but sometimes things
Okay.
happen again, but usually they're up by Tuesday.
Okay.
Turn it off.